alpha male, obsessive compulsive, driven to a flaw with success. And let's not sugarcoat it. It wasn't success. It was money. That was my God. That was my higher power. And although I had success in chasing that, it it was a very empty life as a result. And it led me down some very dark rabbit holes of workaholism, leading to alcoholism, leading to rock bottom in May of 2020, leading to rebirth, genesis, and the life that I have now.
Hi, and welcome to the Awakening series. My name is Kimberly Archuleta. Today we have an honored guest. So honored, I can call him my big brother. Yeah, this is a relationship that goes back probably over 20 years. And I'm just really excited and thankful to have him on the show. Jeff Gostovich, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. It's been a pleasure to know you all these 20 plus years, and an honor to be thought of for an interview by you, because I admire you so much, as you well know.
Thank you, as I do you. So today we're going to talk about healing, growing, so growth in the eyes of healing, and it's going to be a really amazing conversation because I was on the outside and sometimes on the inside, watching and living this life with you in a sense, as just like your little
You
sister.
were. You
Yeah.
were.
So super excited to discuss this topic, and I'm just going to give you the floor. Please tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, thank you. My name is Jeff Gostovich, and I am an oil and gas executive, but more importantly, a life enthusiast as a result of some big changes in my life that have come as a result of growth and healing, the topic here. And so I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about that journey. And it's to think about how far you and I have both come from those early days back in the early 2000s, and where we are today is nothing short of some form of miracle, Kim. And I'm so proud to be here today with you on the right side of the grass, first of all. There's been plenty of opportunity for me to be on the wrong side, as you probably know. And also just with the enlightenment that I have from the result of trauma, the result of going through a lot of isms that we'll get into, and having you alongside me, both on the outside looking in and on the inside with me, fighting in this foxhole that I've been in, I'm just so grateful for it. So I live here in Wyoming. Just moved back here from Texas after many years down there in the oil business, and decided to move back here as a result of COVID, really shaking up my value tree, uprooting it, if you will, and determining that life is not all about what I thought it was. And so, being an oil and gas executive, I was the typical alpha male, obsessive compulsive, driven to a flaw with success. And let's not sugarcoat it. It wasn't success. It was money. That was my God. That was my higher power. And although I had success in chasing that, it was a very empty life as a result. And it led me down some very dark rabbit holes of workaholism, leading to alcoholism, leading to rock bottom in May of 2020, leading to rebirth, genesis, and the life that I have now.
That's beautiful, Jeff. It's not to say that all of us here, all of us listening, don't have our own demons, don't have those times where we went too far with whatever it is that we thought was good for us at the moment, or didn't care and just enjoyed the moment a little too much. So I really am excited to, talk about this situation that kind of possibly started with a career obsession that led to alcoholism, which of course, if alcoholism isn't, there's no solution to it within that time, or help isn't there, or you didn't take the help, then, leading to rock bottom, as you mentioned, And then, of course, to thankfully and so blessed to hear and see and watch and be a part of your spiritual awakening. So yeah, we can get into it a bit more. We all were there. We all have done so many different things. And I can say the same thing. I'm just so thankful to also be here with you because I don't think anybody's perfect.
No, and you nailed it, Kim. We all have some sort of nemesis. The darkness has hit every human on this planet. It is part of the human experience. And I firmly believe that in an inverse correlation between pain and growth. And so the darker and deeper the pain, the lighter and brighter the growth and hope that can come as a result. If you recognize it and if you become a victor versus a victim. And the one thing you also said that was key to my journey was recognizing that I didn't have it all together. I did not control everything and that I needed help. Having the buffer of success, of money, all of those things that bolster a false sense of self and the ego make it really difficult to recognize when you don't have it all together. And they became a Teflon coating, if you will, of a very broken man. And, I was the king of putting it all out there on the front side of the stage that my life was all together, right? That I had it all in control. And behind the curtain, it was a mess, and mentally, physically, on the physical side, I did an interview similar to this with a pastor of mine in the beginning of 21. And I was 310 pounds in that video. And I was sitting on a couch looking at the video going, man, that poor couch. Here I am today, as a result of the growth and healing and that inverse correlation between pain and growth. At 240 pounds, probably the best shape I've been in my entire adult life, which has led to the mental health growth. That body mind connection is real, which led to my connection with God being more clear. And as a result of that action I took to swing the pendulum from the all work side of the work-life balance into the almost all life side of the work-life balance. And I'm slowly bringing it back in the middle. But that last 2.5 years since my rock bottom, and since reaching out for help and asking for help and admitting I didn't have it all together, which was really hard for a man with a huge false ego to admit, I swung that pendulum all into life and invested in myself, invested in my belief in God, invested in my belief in my body, and then invested in being of service to others. And that was really key for me as a man with a big ego and all being about me and me. I'm in control. I've got this, to then going, I'm not that big a deal. I don't have it all under control. And helping others is the best way to achieve what I really was seeking all along, which was a spiritual connection, which was a connection with others, which was God in growth and healing. And the only way I've gotten here is by being of service to others and sharing my story, which is why I'm so grateful to have this platform with you. Because even if my journey and this story can help just one other person who has gone through what I've gone through, whether it's directly experienced or indirectly experienced, whether it's any of the isms that I've had to suffer, workaholism, alcoholism, addiction, whatever it is, if I can just help one person by sharing my story, then my life is that much better as a result. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Of course, of course. We can kind of get into a bit more detail if you'd like, as far as where you feel it started and then how it maybe just plateaued or how it continued and how it kind of spiraled maybe.
Yeah, great question. So when you and I first met back in the early 2000s, we were both in sales for telecom, and that was really the beginning of my journey of making pretty decent money back then. And I watched you thrive so far in that space too. And then the success became all about money. And then when I got into the oil industry, then I understood what real money was. And that stair step up into money was what became my addiction, right? It was my drug of choice, making more money, and it was never enough. I would always set goals that I thought were unattainable, just outside of attainable. And then all of a sudden I'd attain them and go, okay, well, now I feel empty. It was what I didn't recognize is it was the goal setting and the reward of that comes in achieving those steps to that goal, not in actually hitting it. So then I would bump the goal up again and bump it up again and bump up again, became obsessive. And then, I felt like I was the last one standing at the party. All of my friends, because I met you when I was 30. All of my friends in the last 20 years got married, had children, started real lives. And I found myself being the last one at the party of the money party going, where'd everybody go? And where's my life? I don't have any of that. I literally sacrificed everything for that. And then as a result, that money buffer got taken out from under me as a result of a double black swan event in 2020, where COVID, beginning of 2020, led to oil price demand crush, which led to oil price decline, the worst in worst in world history. We saw negative oil prices, minus $40 a barrel in May of 2020, April of 2020. And when that happened, guess what? The money buffer wasn't there. I lost everything. And then I had this oh my gosh, my friends are all married and have children. They have them to rely on. Many of them were in the industry. But at least they had that support system. And I'm sitting in this beautiful high rise in Dallas going, I can't even go out to meet my neighbors. And I don't have a family and other than my parents here in Wyoming. And I don't have the money I had. Oh my gosh, guess what I did have? I had the bottle. And from April 20th, 2020 through May 29th of 2020, 6 weeks, I literally drank myself nearly to death. Operating 24 hours a day on stress and alcohol, and put myself in the hospital on that day of May 29th as a result, and nearly died. And that was the big sledgehammer I needed over the head to go, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What I thought it was is taken away from me. I'm not in control of that. What is my new purpose? And that began the genesis into the life that I have now. I still enjoy being in the oil industry. I'm just not obsessive about it. I don't work 60, 80 hours a week. I work, a normal schedule, just like somebody with a normal life would do. And then on the other side of that schedule, I invest in me. I invest in other people. I moved back here as a result of going, man, I've been away from my mom and dad for decades. It's time to experience them while they still have their, minds and bodies healthy enough, thank God, to enjoy them. And now I spend, 4 or 5 nights a week with them out at the ranch and getting to know them again, and them getting to know their son again. And life is beautiful as a result. But that journey was hard, Kim. And, that inverse correlation between the pain of nearly dying as a result of my obsessive, compulsive addiction personality made me go, okay, let's see what the growth side of this is, because I know if it's that dark, the light is going to be that bright. And every day as I look out the window, that light is brighter as a result of this journey.
If you could, say, for example, if somebody is listening and they're kind of at that tipping point, what would your suggestion be for them? You being, a spokesperson at certain events for this type of, healing and growth. What would you suggest that somebody do if they don't really have family and something like this did happen to them? They lost their job, they're now drinking, or they know somebody who is. What are your thoughts on, helping themselves and or helping their family member or helping their friend?
You've got to break your own silence. The silence I had around my own awareness and of my disease of addiction and workaholism and obsessive compulsive, was what kept me from getting the help I needed. And the ego silenced it because I didn't want to admit it to anybody. Even though there was people in my life that knew, I didn't think they knew, but they did, like my parents and very close people like you. You had given me the knock on the shoulder plenty of times throughout the last 10 years, really, of Jeff, what are you doing? But it was up to me to hear that and then to share that. And that's what my advice would be, is to share it, get it off your chest, break your own silence of your own ism, addiction, whatever it is, your pain, talk about it to somebody. And then from that stepping stone, which is the hardest one, that first step, every time you do share it, it just becomes easier and easier. And you'll find that there's a lot of grace and love on the other side of that conversation. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting judgment. I was expecting abandonment. I was expecting them to, literally just turn a shoulder. And so many people like you, like my parents, like my colleagues that I love dearly, my good friend Cody Davis, who I hope watches this, and big thank you to you, supported me and then helped me step by step get to a point where I could get into therapy. I got into, YouTube. I have a YouTube degree on addiction, on spirituality, on physical growth, on the gut biome connection to the brain. I mean, I really dove hard into that, but I wouldn't have been able to get there or here without that first step of talking with somebody and sharing what your weaknesses are.
That's amazing. And yet so hard. I mean, it took you so many years to get to that point of almost, dying, to then be able to speak your truth, or at least some of it, at least one part of it. And then from there, being able to talk a little bit more to the ones you love, and then a little bit more. So I'm so thankful you had the courage to do that, because you are the biggest advocate for anything that you believe in. That's you. That's who you are. Like, you are that guy that roots. You're like the coach. You're awesome in that, like, regard. And for you to be like that for yourself, and get to this point where you're your biggest advocate, not just all of us, is so beautiful, because you're able to take that first step. And like you said, slowly get there with therapy and so many other things like support. And now you're supporting so many people. What are you doing now currently in regards to supporting, people that have been in similar situations?
Great question. And, before I answer that question, you mentioned something that's very important. That breaking that silence doesn't have to be throwing it all on the table, right? It can start with one little thing. Hey, I drink too much. Hey, I work too much. What do you think? Do you think that? It doesn't have to be everything. You don't have to lay all the skeletons out. And that was a big realization for me, because then once you got that one skeleton bone out on the table, then it was easier to talk about other things and other weaknesses. But start somewhere, start small. And then you'll find, again, a lot of support and grace and love there. And then it gets easier and easier. And now I'm to a point where, I don't have anything to hide. I will talk about all of my demons to anybody that wants to listen, and maybe glean some hope and let them know and make them feel like they're not alone. And that's a big realization. So what I'm doing now is things like this. I've done this a few other times. I mentioned with my pastor, Pastor Reverend Ryan Canaday in Denver, Colorado, at Free Spiritual Community. It's a church for loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. I love that church, and that's a venue in which I help others. I'm a sponsor in a STEP program to others, and that has been so cathartic and healing for me. The quote there is, "You can't keep the gift of recovery without giving it away." And giving it away involves sharing your story and your journey and your experience, strength, and hope. And that is so true. And that dovetails into any type of journey, whether it's workaholism, whether it's just trauma, period, from a painful childhood, abandonment, loss, that experience strength and hope. Because, if you're awake today and you're watching this, you're batting 1,000 at succeeding and getting through the hardest days in your life, that is a huge win. And that makes it a lot less painful to think about those times when you go, I'm still here. And being able to share that with others through platforms like this, through podcasts, through recovery programs and sponsoring is really what I do.
That's so beautiful, Jeff. I truly believe that giving back is, like you mentioned to begin with, and then now actually the doing of it, you actually are physically doing it and mentally there and you're mentally present. But I truly feel like the giving back part is this of service part is something that a lot of us don't know about, but it brings so much to our lives. It brings so much to our lives, and it's something that these are memories, these are moments that are priceless, if you will. Like, there's such beautiful moments to bond with people you don't know, that maybe aren't at your level at this point, but maybe even might skyrocket above you. Hopefully, good for
Mhm.
them, and you'll continue to support them, and as they probably will, continue to support you and others. But it's just such a beautiful journey once you get into that of service mindset and attitude. And I love that you're there now, and you're truly loving it and capable of giving so much by being so honest and raw to folks you don't even know, but they need help. So I commend you on that. And it's just a beautiful thing to hear and see. I'm so thankful for this moment.
Thank you. And you mentioned the word love. Just to talk about that a little bit, because I love you. I love my parents. I love so many friends and family members and colleagues and clients and investors that have stuck by me. But really, through this journey, what I found the biggest miracle to be is that I finally loved myself. And that was 48 years in the making, to get to that point. And once I truly got there, where I was accepting of my weaknesses, I wasn't silent about them anymore. I shared them, and then found support and me too, and connectivity and fellowship through that. Then I became in love with those weaknesses, right? Because we're all flawed human beings. It's hard to love yourself if you're looking in the mirror and going, what is wrong with you? And literally, that negative talk, that dialogue that we have in our brain is powerful. I had to do a lot of work around that, not shaming myself and talking to myself in the mirror, literally talking to myself like, you're a good person. You will do something good today. And then counting those good things and making a gratitude list of it. There was a lot of faking it till I made it to get there, but you don't get anywhere without starting somewhere. And if you have to fake it to make it, get there. Because once I did truly accept me for me and loved me for me, then I can show up for you. I can show up for my family, and I can truly love you and everybody else I love from an authentic place. And there is a lot of truth to that story they say about you can't love somebody else until you love yourself. That is finally where I'm at. And that true love and connection and friendship that I have with you, with my family and others, is what life is all about. Money will come and go, cars will come and go, houses, what have you. This is why I'm here, is this connection and this love of myself and others. So I'm thankful to be here, Kim. I'm grateful. And if you know of anybody that wants to talk to me about it, please extend my contact information. I'm here for you. And yeah, I love you, and I want to teach you to love yourself too.
It's beautiful, Jeff. And absolutely, love is the ultimate. I love talking about love, the Albert Einstein letter. It's a letter to his daughter about how, he's basically researched more about, the universe than just about anybody in his time. But really,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, what's most important is love, that love frequency, and giving it and receiving it too. So loving yourself is something we're not really taught We're just not taught that. And I mean, maybe we can see it with our parents, but what if somebody doesn't have parents, or what if they were raised by their grandparents, or, these things aren't always taught. So for the fortunate ones that, have that, it's such a blessing because they can easily give it back. But for some that don't, it's just, you kind of learn as you see, but you have to basically go through things to understand how to love yourself. And it just takes time, and everybody's time as far as awakening to spirituality and awakening to the love for God, awakening to the love for themselves, awakening to the love for the society where they want to help. We all come into our own at different times and or different, tragedies or experiences that we go through. So your experience, your journey is phenomenal. The fact that, like you said, you are sitting right here today and you're able to, speak your truth and so on. So my next question to you would be, and there's a few, what would you say to your younger self? What advice would you give to your younger self back when you and I first met in our, we'll just say telecom days?
That was a great question. Forgive yourself. Yeah, I was the king of blaming myself for a lot of trauma in my life that I really did not have control over. But being a control freak, I thought I did. I lost two sisters at two separate times when I was the age of 7 and 9, and they were younger than me. And I was so super protective of them that I literally blamed myself as a child. As an adult, I would look back on my child and blame him, the 7-year-old kid that had nothing to do with why they died. And once I got to that point of forgiving myself, then the healing could happen. And then the awareness around what really matters could happen. And yeah, that would be my advice to anybody that holds on to guilt, shame, anxiety around things that they really weren't in control of. Forgive yourself.
I love that you said that. Like, you can look at your folks, say, for example, and have the best folks ever, at least from the outside, but on the inside, they possibly weren't, or they were manipulative, or they're whatever it may be. But in all actuality, this is again an example. Somebody could take that on and carry that as if it was them, and not know how to forgive themselves for the situation that happened, even though it wasn't their fault, right? And also forgiving yourself for somebody acting out the way their parents did because that's all they know. And again, going back and forgiving themselves for acting out that way too. So things we don't learn, things we don't know how to, comprehend even, because we carry the trauma or the non-ability to understand the bigger picture. One day, hopefully we get to this point of teaching our children how to, express themselves, how to let things go, how to forgive themselves, how to appreciate love, how to give love, and so on. And I think we're, getting there as a, society. But there's so many kids kind of left behind that aren't there and just going through the system. So, I'm so sorry that you lost your sisters the way you did, and that you carried that and you didn't know how to heal from that or release it at that time or within certain periods of your life. And it's taken this time, like kind of a long time. But I get it. I feel it. And I think we all can see how that can happen. So my next question to you would be, what books would you recommend to folks that, want to help another or help themselves with whatever addiction they may have?
I love books. And one of the best books I read as an early adult is called Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. I'm spacing the author right now, but that's a great starting point for anybody, right? Because we've all had bad things, and the why me happens. That's a great book. Another one is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Being present instead of future tripping and creating scenarios that are likely never going to happen, which stress the body and mind. That's living in the future. That's an illusion. Being trapped in the past, that is a prison. Thinking and perseverating on things that happened, childhood memories, adult memories, blaming yourself in that prison of the past. But being present, that book changed my life about how to be present. And it goes through very rigorous exercises in the mind to start practicing. Eckhart Tolle is a genius and one of the greatest modern thinkers there is. So that would be my book number 2 recommendation. And then one of the most fascinating books I'm reading right now is called Attached. And it's about relationships, romantic and otherwise, and how we intermingle as humans that are flawed, and how we can become avoidant, secure, or anxiously attached to somebody. And that's probably one of the most, it's probably the most in-depth book about learning about me that I've ever read. And I'm only halfway through it. So yeah, those would be 3 high recommendations on my book reading list.
I love them. I love them. I've read all of them except for the last one, so I'm super excited to get into that. I do want to go into the Eckhart Tolle book of The Power of Now. I really love the fact that he actually hit rock bottom. He lost his wife and his child. They didn't die, but because he was an alcoholic, he was living on the streets, and he was, about to break through this pane of glass because he saw a gun, and he wanted to get the gun, and he wanted to shoot himself. And all this stuff was going through his head, and something clicked in his head as if he now became the observer of all these thoughts that he was thinking and created in his life. And then it manifested to be where he is at that point in time. And it's just such a beautiful, position to be in, because just like all of us, we've all had our demons. We've all had these moments where we've gone too far. And to then just observe for a moment and take yourself out of the situation and observe what your thoughts are, observe it. Because in all actuality, we're, a part of God. God made us, and we are truly a spiritual being, I believe, in this beautiful human, meat sack. And God gave us, this observer, this higher mind, if you will, to be able to understand the overall picture of what we're putting ourselves in with the monkey mind that we've gotten ourselves into. So it could be a loop, it could be whatever it is, but it's something we're attached to, like you said, in the future or in the past, and we're not as present as we could be. So I think what did he do? He laughed or something about it, and he couldn't stop laughing. I don't know. Such a great book. Yes, I love them all. And I can't wait to read the book that you just suggested.
Attached. Yeah.
Because we all are attached at some point in time. And again, we don't know how, we're not taught how to unattached. We're not taught how to. We don't, these things aren't, just, there's no booklet on this, but obviously now there is. So we don't really read that when we're younger. It's almost like we need to have a kid's book for this too. And then a middle school book, and then a high school book. So people really understand that we can detach from these things and release ourselves from whatever it is that we need to release ourselves from that is possibly harmful.
Yeah, I'll tell you the biggest takeaway real quick on that book is I now pay attention very closely to how people affect my sympathetic nervous system, whether it creates anxiety or stress or love or calm. And I really am paying attention to that, and then associating myself with only those people that continuously show up and calm me, and that I calm them, versus chasing those people that create anxiety and stress. So that's a big takeaway from that book. Sorry to interrupt. What were you going to ask me?
Oh, I love that. That's huge. Everybody can use that in their daily lives. That point of that book. Oh my gosh, I can use that right now. So thank you for that point. So I guess another question would be is, where do you see yourself? And maybe this is the last question. And then of course I'll open the floor to you. Where do you see yourself in the next 2 to 5 years, and maybe even 10 years?
I get that question a lot, and I'll tell you, this may surprise you, but I don't. I don't think about 2 years from now or 5 years from now. I literally live for today. And that, call it crazy, call it what you will, but it allows me to be present and enjoy every moment, because I was the king of future tripping and thinking about all the things on my plate to achieve and the goals, which were all in the future. And as a result, the first 45 years, 48 years of my life, you remember those old cassette players that if you pressed fast forward and play at the same time, it sounded like that was what my life felt like when I looked in the rearview mirror and I listened to the audio and video it was a blur of fast. And it was a result of always living in the future and then taking time to think about the past and never being present. So I really push against thinking about where I'm going to be 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I just know that if I take care of today, tomorrow is going to be good. And if I do that again tomorrow, the next day will even be better. Typically. Now, you're always going to have occasions where you take one step back, 2 steps forward. It's not always going to be progress and growth. But on those one step back days, taking an inventory of what caused that. And that allows you to be present too. You're not thinking about tomorrow, you're thinking about right now. And I'll tell you now, the play deck of my life, I feels like I'm living 3 days in one as a result of not getting out over my skis about tomorrow or 2 years from now. I literally feel like my life has slowed down to where the first 2/3 of my life, let's say I live to be 75, 80, I hope, knock on wood, we don't know. But if the first 2/3 of my life were a blur, then the next third of my life is going to feel like the longest part and the most beautiful part as a result of being present and not thinking about the future too much or the past way too much.
That was literally one of the most brilliant answers ever. I love that. And
Thank you.
wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Jeff. The floor is yours. If you would like to say anything to our audience, you're welcome to.
Well, I just wanted to thank anybody that's still listening at this point. And I would tell you that, I'm a big believer, I mentioned this earlier, in therapy. As a man with an ego the size of an elephant, it was hard for me to accept that I needed help and to seek that professional help. And now I am a therapyaholic. I love my therapists, and I look forward to each session. And some aren't always easy. Unlocking memories that I'd forgotten from the past, and processing them, and then putting the wizard hat on that you say as an observer to the lizard mind, and reliving some of those, but from an observational standpoint, and laughing at my child and the inner child in me. That is all a result of therapy, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today without it. I think therapy is as important, if not more important, than having a medical doctor in your life, a general practitioner. I think everybody on this planet should have a therapist. And that would be something I would want to leave this with, is seek the advice of a professional. It is very rewarding.
And I have to second that motion, Jeff. That was so profound. If we think about, our dis-ease, whatever that may be in our heart, about whatever, we're sad about this or that, and we hold it and we keep it, and we've kept it for 5 years, it can become a disease. So having that disease in our body can really change our lives, because you're holding on to this pain that could have been released through, like you said, therapy, through conversations, through speaking the truth, through that one step of what you needed to talk about. So wow, I second that motion in regards to therapy. It's key. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Definitely.
Thank you, Jeff. This was an amazing conversation, and I'm just so proud of you and so thankful you're here, and I cannot wait to see what you're doing in the next couple of years. Although we live in the present and you're fully in the present, I truly see amazing things with where you are now and where you're going to be.
Well, I'm excited about that, because you've been with me through thick and thin, and vice versa. And I know you'll be a part of the journey. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.